Victoria, I realize you're a U.S. citizen, but you were born and bred, as they say, in the United Kingdom, and you follow what's going on in British politics brilliantly. And so I'm wondering, who the heck is Liz Truss, and what can we expect out of her as the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Tom. She is unknown in the sense that obviously we don't know that, so there are some unknown unknowns. But she has been around for a while. She is brainy. She is untried in terms of many of these policies. In fact, a lot of policymakers, not in terms of lawmakers, but in terms of policy people, really felt that she, their opponent, are still left on the island, if you like.
Victoria, your phone is breaking up. I don't know if there's anything you can, do about that. If you could stand in a different place or something, but your phone just broke up pretty badly. Could you repeat your last sentence or two?
Yes. Many watchers of the Conservative final part of this leadership race felt that Rishi Sunak was more of a policy wonker, more experienced at this critical time. Mm-hmm. She likes to be a disruptor, Liz Truss does. She loves disruptors, and she's proud of having that label. Whether disrupting, whatever that might mean, is what Britain needs right now is sort of questionable. She is somebody, she used to be a Liberal Democrat, which, as you and your listeners know, is the party sort of in the middle in British politics. I suspect she had an eye to the main chance and realized, if I switch to being a Conservative, a Tory, I'm more likely to rise in the ranks. And she did early on in her career. Mm. And so she's been an elected MP for 12 years now. So that's quite a quick rise. And she was against Brexit. She voted to remain in the European Union. And then she became very, very avidly for it. So she's clearly made a number of turnarounds.
Yeah, I've heard her compared to Kyrsten Sinema. Do you think that that's a reasonable analogy?
I think she's far further to the right than Kyrsten Sinema. Right. She likes to be compared with the Iron Lady herself, Margaret Thatcher. Right.
But I mean, in terms of just basically being a political chameleon,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Fair. Very fair. Very fair.
So Britain is facing a lot of challenges right now. The UK has over 10% inflation. It's going to get worse as winter comes and the Russian oil embargoes, crank up the rest of Europe. Large parts of the rest of, in Latvia, the inflation is like 60–70%. In some places, really bad. But she's got some serious challenges. At the same time, did I read correctly over the weekend that she's talking about further privatizing the National Health Service?
Well, it's really not clear what she's talking about doing with the National Health Service. She is talking about taking money away from hospitals and channeling that money into social care, but that it's not clear what that means. Mm-hmm. She talked in her brief speech today about helping the NHS, but we don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. The appointment that she makes to her cabinet for that position, the health minister, will be very important. We should know that later today. They have another huge problem they have with their health service right now is that doctors, something like 1 in 10 doctors, is planning to retire. Why? Because they are being so badly treated that it's not worth their while to continue because of an issue with being taxed regarding their pension plans. And they just cannot afford to keep working. And so they have a real problem, and people cannot get their appointments. They just cannot get an appointment at a doctor's office. Wow. So she's vowing that people will get appointments again. But I don't see how she's going to be able to bring that about.
Huh. Interesting. To what extent, my understanding is that she was elected prime minister by, about 150,000 members of the Conservative Party there, the Tories? Do I have that right?
Yes, That's correct. Paid up rank and file. This is so you pay to be a member of the Conservative Party, and these are largely older, largely white voters, I would say, who voted for her. The people who voted for her in the end are not really representative of England or Britain at all, actually. And it's not. I don't think it's true either that they're representative of the Conservative Party members in the House of Commons either.
Interesting. Now, she was the foreign policy, or the foreign minister, was she not? The kind of the equivalent of Secretary of State, and she was a strong advocate of, for example, taking on Russia with regard to Ukraine. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yes, she's very strong. In fact, she said some things about the war in Ukraine and against Russia and Putin in particular that have been even stronger than some of the things the United States has said. And I think she relishes the role of taking that on. Of course, the difficulty she's facing is, Britain is, and I noticed this when I was there a couple of months ago, very strong on the war of Russia against Ukraine, on Ukraine's side. Nevertheless, they are suffering in the pocketbook very, very deeply because of that. Yeah. So depending what she plans to do financially, it could go down not so well. People are experiencing huge increases in costs at the grocery store right now.
And part of that is the result of Brexit, is it not? What's the fate and future of Brexit in the UK?
Well, she wants to do something with the Northern Ireland Protocol, which, of course, is part of Brexit, with the trade aspect of it. And she doesn't want to stick with the current agreement. And that's being watched very carefully in Brussels and very, very carefully here in Washington, D.C., because Washington stands by the Good Friday Agreement, the Good Friday Accords that were hammered out some years ago. And if she wants to change this, that would be seen as being against international law, which in fact it would be. And you don't only get trade problems, you could get real problems.
Well, you could get back to Northern Ireland and Ireland having a war going on, basically, or Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom having a war going on. Or am I misunderstanding this?
No, you're not misunderstanding it. I think you've got it exactly right.
Wow. So is the IRA remilitarizing, for example, in anticipation?
I don't think so at this point, but there are other groups. There are more radical groups.
Of course, there always are. Remarkable. So, Victoria, last question. How might the rise, we're talking with Victoria Jones, DC on Twitter, the chief Washington analyst for the DC radio company. How might Liz Truss's ascendance to the prime ministership affect the United States? Well,
Joe Biden, the president, has tweeted out, his support, and he's going to call her tonight. I think she has actually been surprisingly not as pro-U.S. as one would expect. She talked about how it's a special relationship, but not an exclusive relationship, which is a very odd thing to date.
Was that during the Trump time or recently?
Fairly recently, I think. But it's something that, why would you even say that? It was like when she was asked in a rapid-fire round about what she thought of Macron, the French leader, and the French. She thought she was being clever when she said the verdict is out or the jury is out.
Right, which flipped out Macron.
Yeah, why not? Why not flip him? Why upset that apple cart? They are allies.
Right. Right.
She was playing to a local crowd, obviously, but that's a wise thing to do.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. We'll see how this all plays out, but the United Kingdom has a new prime minister. Liz Truss and Victoria Jones just gave us the skinny on it. Victoria, thanks so much. It's always great talking with you.
Thank you very much.
I truly appreciate your insights. We will be right back at 16 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, speaking the truth the multinational corporations would really rather you didn't know all about.